people out there that are intent on making sure that we don't have peace that prevails.
That's Chief Belmar talking about Ferguson and what has transpired over the last couple of days. And since our governor, Jay Nixon, is missing in action and refuses to engage, we decided to talk to the second in command, the lieutenant governor of the state of Missouri, Peter Kinder, who is also running to be your next governor. Good morning, Peter Kinder, and thank you for joining us on the show.
Good morning, McGraw. Thank you for having me. Beautiful morning in our state.
You betcha. What are your thoughts as you sit and watch this 1 year later?
Well, McGraw, I was up there Friday for an NAACP. That group convened a brunch, they called it, at Florissant Valley Community College, and there were, I don't know, a couple hundred people in attendance, the state treasurer, the secretary of state, Congressman Lacey Clay, myself, and others, a lot of law enforcement personnel, and a lot of community leaders and business leaders, and the governor was absent. I learned while I was there that the governor had been asked to stay away by NAACP leaders who felt that his presence would be counterproductive. But that doesn't excuse the governor's failure to communicate with the mayor of Ferguson, James Knowles, or with the mayor of neighboring Delwood, Mayor Reggie Jones. We're 368 days past the start of the trouble on August 9th last year, and the governor has not talked to those mayors. I don't know what he's doing, hiding out in Jefferson City. I can tell you that last evening I was at a function in far southwest Missouri in Neosho, that's down by the Oklahoma and Kansas border. And I was asked by folks down there, why isn't the governor engaging in Ferguson? You might be interested to know, McGraw, the governor was in Neosho yesterday for some kind of public appearance. And down there in Neosho, close to 300 miles from St. Louis, they're saying, why isn't the governor involved in St. Louis, in Ferguson?
It's a question. I have done a little national media the last day or two, filling in people on what's going on in Ferguson, and that's the question I'm getting. I can't answer that question. As you mentioned, a year later, the man releases a statement, and that's it. Goes about his business. It's, and I don't mean to pile on. You do. It's unconscionable that our governor is so disengaged in a national story that is happening in his state.
Well, he also released, even before the statement I think you're referencing, on the 30th of July, what's that, 2 weeks ago now?
Right.
He releases a limp statement saying, we will be well prepared for the anniversary on August 9th. Well, on the available evidence of what we saw in the national media and local media there in St. Louis, he was not prepared for what happened. And I think what we have to do in his absence, in this vacuum of leadership, McGraw, is back up our peace officers. We must stand behind our peace officers. I think the good law-abiding, tax-paying citizens of Missouri have had enough. When the protesters, they say they're exercising their First Amendment rights, when they go down and shut down Interstate 70, one of our great arterial east-west interstate highways in America, during rush hour at the Blanchette Bridge, the people of Missouri are saying enough is enough. Where is the leadership to stand behind the police, the highway patrol, and all the rest, and put an end to this? I think maybe we need some rolling paddy wagons rolling through the neighborhoods and rounding up the troublemakers and putting them where they belong, in custody behind bars.
You have been criticized in the past for spending too much time in St. Louis, which I've never really quite understood that criticism. You debuted your campaign in North St. Louis, and as you mentioned, you were there last week. You have reached out and sort of built communications across racial barriers. What was the conversation like at that luncheon on Friday that you attended? Give us the highlights.
It was varied because of the number of different speakers and so forth. But I can tell you what I the message I get when I visit with the small shopkeepers there along West Florissant in both Ferguson and Delwood. They think, and I back them up on this, they're as worthy of protection as the posh Galleria Mall. Why was the Galleria Mall ringed with security and highway patrol? Why was Lambert Airport bristling with National Guardsmen last year, but not those small shopkeepers, the hair salons, the meat market, the convenience stores, and the other places were up there in Ferguson? In that neighborhood, the governor of Missouri turned the streets over to the criminals and the vandals, the looters, and those who throw firebombs, and that is simply unacceptable. And I'm getting a lot of response to my statement made in Ferguson when I announced my candidacy on the 12th of July. No more Fergusons, never again will we turn our streets over to those bad actors.
The other thing I find interesting is you're running for governor, so clearly you are out and about, but you're not the only one running for governor. You're the only one out talking. The Peter Kinders of the, Chris Kosters of the world, he's not saying a whole lot. People from your party are not saying a whole lot. It seems to me you're the only one who's running for governor who is engaged in this conversation.
Well, McGraw, I absolutely believe that after what we've been through, the slow-rolling catastrophe that started August 9th last year, that 2016 for Missourians will be a law and order election. Let's review the crime stats that came out the first week of July for this year to date. In St. Louis, we're having an explosion of violent crime. We are having homicides up 58.6%, and 4 categories of other violent crimes, those being robberies, burglaries, aggravated assaults, and vehicle thefts, are all up double digits. And in the face of that, Governor Nixon issues limp statements and doesn't show up, and the chief law enforcement officer in state government is asking the voters of Missouri for a promotion. Now, that fact is out there for discussion by the people of Missouri and by their candidates asking for their votes over the next year.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah, real quick.
Have you and the governor ever had a conversation about the situation in Ferguson? Have you ever sat down?
Not one. This governor doesn't talk to me or to the other officials in state government. I've had Democrat elected officials at the statewide level tell me they don't get much more contact attention than I do. Emails are unreturned from me. U.S. mail, and I'm a few steps down the hall from him on the second floor of the Capitol. No response. I learn about his trip to Afghanistan or Iraq from the news media. There is no communication. That's the way this governor wants it. He's huddled in his office, surrounded by a few lawyers who've worked for him for many years, dating back to when he was Attorney General. That is his style. And the people of Missouri are suffering from this vacuum of leadership and communication.
On a different note, Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder, the governor is doing everything in his power to build a new stadium for the St. Louis Rams. If you become governor, will you reinstate the tour of Missouri, which was projected to cost $1 million, but well on its way to being self-sufficient? Would you like to see that tour back in Missouri?
Yes, I would, McGraw. It was the largest sporting event ever held in Missouri. It was a free event to the public. It involved $1 million expenditure of tourism tax money that was going to be spent to promote our state anyway. And we had independent economic impact studies done by the University of Missouri School of Business that said we had like a 38-to-1 return for that $1 million investment.
And why do we not have that tour of Missouri, which is the state's largest sporting event?
Because I asked the governor to continue it and to embrace it, and to make it his own. And for goodness sakes, he's the governor. He could have made it his own, and out of spite, because it was my baby, he killed the tour of Missouri, and it went to Colorado, where they had 1 million spectators the next year.
Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder, it's always a pleasure. Be safe, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thank you. Thanks.
7:30 here, Big 550, KTRS.